welcome to a super exciting special episode of Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and I am joined by a guest today who was originally scheduled to be earlier in the series, but had a little conflict with the scheduling. And in full transparency, one of the slides in the intro was based purely for her to see and a topic that we're going to be talking about that I'm super excited to be bringing to everyone. And so I'm going to stop on this wonderful Easter day rambling because I'm so excited and like trying to recollect my calmness. So I'm going to allow my guest to introduce herself. I'm sure most of you are familiar with her, and if not, you need to look her up because she is amazing. I give you Julia, come on.
Thank you for having me, Michael. It is a pleasure to be here. My name is Julia Kamen, and I'm an interesting character. I'm unlike anyone you've ever met. I focus on things I'm passionate about are like living structured water, inner earth, goddesses. I'm really into that. Tartaria, free energy, but cerebral spinal fluid. And the way that I've come across a lot of these was through visions, like through remote viewing and connecting, and one thing led to another. And yeah, I'm a diehard researcher. And I'm pretty passionate about parasites. Like when you get me talking about parasites, I kind of turn into Ric Flair, where I'm just like, I turn into like this wrestler, like kind of Randy Savage of like, yeah, the parasites, they're stealing your serotonin and you need to get them out, because a lot of things that I'm about raising consciousness. And what I've noticed and the things that I've learned is we're so inundated with heavy metals and parasites that it's hard for people to connect to that for clarity. Like everybody, I teach people like remote viewing techniques um, and to connect to that, which we need and we're gonna need. The more that AI implements and the more mechanical we go, we have to balance that out with having our spiritual protocols, having our spiritual connection. We're going to need it. So I can get pretty warish and passionate about like, you gotta cleanse. It really does affect the clarity meter. And so, yeah, if you get me going on that, I'll totally go off. I'll turn into a wrestler, Michael.
That's totally awesome. And, I'm kind of tempted to try my luck at that. But one of the things that I found interesting that I had to look up because I'd never heard the term, and that was Starforts. And I'm thinking, looking at Starforts, thinking, oh my God, she's going to be talking about forts that are on stars? And then realized I'm not even sure if I looked up the right information, but they're like, no, there's little forts around the planet that are shaped like a star.
And did you see how they say it's like bastion forts, and it was like for military purposes? Like you saw the narrative of what they tell you it's for.
Right, and I was like, I was like, so if Julia's talking about this, I don't think what I'm seeing is what she's going to be talking about. So I'm interested what you have to share with explaining what Starforts are to you.
Now, okay. Now, first off, let me give a little bit of a background, which is interesting. is so my personal experience in 2013, it started where I was guided to stare at specific stars and go into like a trance and like retrieve data. I was incredibly advanced at first, but then like all kinds of things happened and I needed to learn. There was a lot I needed to learn. but I received a lot of data from that, and it changed the course of my life. So what we see is, so that's my personal experience, which I think it helps. But so you have all these starforts around the world, and when I did a remote viewing of one, what I found really interesting was this hydraulic system that seemed to be ancient, and it lowered things. It lowered it, and it's beneath this starfort. And there was also in a column that was inside of it had like this specific metals, the specific metal that was inside of it. And I was like, what are they doing? What are they lowering? You know, and the fact that with cymatics and the water system of some of these and what was being directed and grown. And it seems to be, and you look at the water and you study the water, especially the fourth phase of water, the living structured water, and how it makes hexagonal shaped crystals, you know, like inside of the water. Right. So, and if you look at different, you know, like Dr. Emoto's water experiments, and you look at water and they look like snowflakes and crystals, and you notice like, wow, when you look at the starforts, they're in that shape. If you could pull up my slides, I could show some pictures. You could share my... Okay. Let me go to the starforts since we're starting there.
I gotta admit, I'm loving this because I'm sitting here for once not having to control and find the image everyone's looking for. And it's like really like fascinating
that's awesome.
To me how you're able to run it.
You're sitting back. Oh, makes me feel like a Virgo, all organized and stuff. Okay, so here are some pictures. And so they existed all around the world. And yeah, we're told they're for military purpose. And that's what I found most fascinating was the hydraulic system beneath them. And then, oh, that's right. I came across, after like a period of time after I remote viewed it, I came across blueprints of a starfort that indicated like a hydraulic system, like a levee system. I need to implement those photos into the slides, but it was confirmation. Nothing's better than like retrieving data. I love that feeling. It'll never get old of like when you view something, or even just when you have insights on things and then you get confirmed. Right. You know, even if it's like, yeah, that person's no good, you know, and then it's like, yeah, I knew it, you know, when you listen to your inner voice. But okay, so now if you look at these, you see the shape of them, like how they're all different, like crystalline shapes, and it reminds me of water.
You know, now that you say it, I totally can see it. It's like studying history. It's like I looked at the forts and I was like, yeah, I'm looking at a fort. I never thought, you know, like you're saying, looking at them going, these look like water.
Right. And then, you know, applying that too as with with water, a lot of these sites and everything for me has to do with the water. It always goes back to the water. And to me, God is water. Like it can be programmed, and it's you know, it's in us, it's inside us, it's above us, below us, it's all around us. It gives us life. You know, the studies of dark matter being traced to water, like everything is water. And the experiments of showing how, you know, Vita Austin has amazing work that's so inspiring of her holding up photos to water, and then how that will imprint. Then she'll freeze the water, and how it will imprint an image. So, and I believe that there's ways to program the water with frequencies and praying to it, and certain modalities, and combining that with, like, especially from deep in the earth, that connects us to Creator, to God, a higher consciousness, a higher version of ourselves. And these ways have been like forgotten.
And what's interesting too is like Fort McHenry played a major role in forming our nation and keeping our nation. That's where our Star Spangled Banner comes from, our national anthem. And Castillo de San Marcos, it's interesting, is on there because if I recall correctly, that's in St. Augustine, Florida, and that place has some wicked energy.
Like, what do you mean wicked? Like wicked Bastin? Like wicked? Like you're saying cool? Like or wicked? Like darker? Like,
well, so when I was there, I was with a friend from Holland, and we were doing a day tour, and it's like I could feel like there were all these people around. And yes, there were actually people around, but I'm talking about like spirits and other beings being around. And I mean, it's just amazing too because they even fired the cannon from one of their towers. And it's like when I remember walking around, and I would never have thought this is a star fort because to me it looks like just a normal fort with the towers. But when you look at it above, I can see where you're getting the star look
right.
from it.
So for me, it's like, okay, programming the water. And then also, okay, this next one, somatic gardens. Like, so imagine planting vegetable and herbs, like with distinct minerals and nutrients and certain frequencies, and utilizing that on like a on a star fort. But so my thing with the star forts is, are they lined up with specific stars to retrieve data from there? Like, could it be that would be absolutely interesting. And I just did a show with Dennis Glamby, and he had this amazing 3D presentation on Karahan Tepe. And Karahan Tepe is like 25 miles from Göbekli Tepe. And he had so refreshing. His presentation was showing. Are you familiar with Karahan Tepe? It's this site that has a bunch of phalluses in the pit, and there's like a head. There's like a head of a guy that's there.
Actually, I'll be honest, this is the first I'm hearing of it, but I've heard of Göbekli, so I know where you're at.
Okay. I don't know if you want to bring up a photo of that, but it was what he was saying is what it was utilized for was using that it would fill up with water, which he showed on the 3D presentation. You can watch that on my channel. It's Dennis Glamby's like Karahan Tepe Secrets Revealed. I believe that's the title of it. And he's saying that the water is filled up and that they used it to like stargaze and to reflect it as like reflective pools to look up at the stars and things in the sky, in the cosmos, and to like it was like a reflective pool, and which is very interesting to me because of the amazing I had the information that I had received from staring at very specific. I was aggressively guided to stare at specific stars, and the data that I got and wrote down was astounding. And some of the things that I wrote down, I didn't really understand what they were. And then when I did a reverse image search, some of them were ancient languages, and some of them were alchemical symbols that stopped being used in the 15th century. So I was like, wow. So I know for a fact, firsthand experience, that you can retrieve amazing information from the stars, as crazy as that sounds. But, it's truly a mystery, right? Like, what were these used for?
It is, and what's interesting is when you were saying these water hydraulics underneath, the first thought that popped in my head is, are these similar to or identical to what's under the we found out was under the pyramids? That they have all these water chambers that was used to do who knows what, but they're there, and it's like, how are they there and why are they there? It's like a bigger question than why is there a pyramid here? It's like, wait a minute. So it's like, I'm wondering now, if pyramids are built over water,
Absolutely.
these are built over water, what's the connection to the water? That's what, it's like, what are they protecting, or what are they, like you're saying, viewing? Like
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can program it, then, and you have things from below that come up that's already programmed in a certain way beneath the earth. And then you have scalar energies. And then if you're instilling the moon and stars and certain things and drawing that in and knowing what water can do, that would be part of the process, right?
Right. And I'll be fully honest, right now I am looking at these pictures, and I keep looking at, I think, is it Fort Crown Point? And I keep looking at it going, is that a Nazca line around it? Like, it looks like, I don't know if it's because it's Easter, I'm like, looks like a bunny or a monkey or something. It's like, it just doesn't look like a fort. I'm like, what? Why does that one keep jumping out and looking like it's one of those aerial pictograms or whatever they're calling them? Do you see that?
Yeah, like, and some of these have been, because I don't know what happened to the bottom of it, right? Like, hey, Fort Crown, what happened? But with a lot of my conclusions and a lot of things go back to the water. A lot of the things I pick up with the remote viewing, I've come across a lot of geothermal waters, a lot of ancient aqueducts, and the things I came across, and even in Inner Earth, and just with the waters, and so it seems to just always come back to that.
Right. And it's interesting because we know, and the audience who's watching this, I'm sure, can agree with this, is we know we were created. We didn't just appear from the amoeba like they tell us in science. We were modified and created for specific purpose. And as we're talking about, everything comes back to the water. I'm like, well, if the same people who made these made us, that would explain why we are mostly water.
What's really important, which I found profound, is water is the mediator between physicality and the 0-point energy of the quantum field. And that is, I think, some of the most significant information. And so knowing that, okay, water is the mediator between physicality and the 0-point energy of the quantum field. Wow. What are these used for?
I know. And it might explain, too, why certain people react differently when visiting these places, because our energy mixing with the water that's in us, if we're alkaline, or if we're drinking structured water or medicinal waters, whatever water it is, may be impacting how we resonate with all these locations, and why some people have more in tune reactions than others.
I made a meme a few years ago. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was of me at the beach, and it was a sandcastle. And the meme I put was, did you ever wonder why we instinctively were building starforts? It's like we can remember, right? Like, how many of us just like making sandcastles and at the beach and making them, and or even sometimes making a moat it's almost like there's some type of memory there, and you hear these stories of Atlantis, and this to me, it's like, oh well, maybe Atlantis just wasn't one place, in between the ocean where it is now. Like perhaps it was a global unified civilization, and to me, this would be the possible remnants of that. Like, and it seems to be that they're trying to make places that are starforts no longer appear as starforts.
Right. And kind of a way that might actually even help validate that is I was talking to a guest, and one of the things that she was saying is we use the term Anunnaki and think it's a race. And she said, no, Anunnaki is actually a group of star races that come from an area. And so if we start looking at it that way, then it makes total sense. What you're saying is right along the same lines.
Well, that too, you look at Enki, and Oannes and like, oh, fish god. There's a lot of water, right?
Right.
That has to do with water. Like, and it seems to be that, there's like some type of firmament and, glass case and like water above us, water's below us, water's inside us.
And even more so is a lot of people don't realize this, but I was in Egypt and they told us how it wasn't the gods, it was the people moved the Nile so they could build a temple on a specific island to Isis. So the entire Nile was moved by people, not the gods. And so it's like, we sit there and go, how did they know how to move a river? We struggle with that today, moving a river. And here, these are ancient people who, for as far as we know, couldn't build a skyscraper or a boat, really.
I think that's next. I think that's next too, is like the water wars, like in Oregon, they've recently like cut off people from using their wells, and like what? And just the, like how just us as a society and humanity is allowing fluoride to be put in our water. And what that does to our pineal, what that is used for. Like, since when do they care about how our teeth health, our dental health is, right? So it's there definitely seems to be an attack upon the water already, and that we've allowed it for so long. And recently in California, in San Diego County, like it passed toilet to tap. Like they're going to take the water and make it toilet to tap, where that just blows my mind of like why we're not practicing desalination, but how that affects our minds, and what the on a microorganism level of the viruses and the pharmaceuticals that are found in the water. So I'm constantly planting seeds of people of like, listen, you have an invention with water, filtering of water, like hop on that. It's going to be lucrative. Like it will be lucrative.
So here's something that might interest you along those lines is here in Texas, we have all the ecosystems and everything, and we're pretty much a country unto ourselves, as we were. But one of the things that was interesting that was going on through history that we never really paid attention to was the millionaires. We thought were buying up land to build ranches, but it was so they could control the water rights.
Yes. Thank you. I did a show about actually Game of Thrones. I don't know if anyone knows this, but Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin's book was completely ripped off from another book called Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And he had come out and talked about suing ChatGPT for like ripping him off, like or copyright. And I go, whoa. When I saw that, I was like, wait, hold on here. This guy completely ripped off another writer. And so I did a show on it, but I invited my good friend of mine who is a patent attorney and an electrical engineer. And so we did a show. It's on my channel. But what's interesting is he had done a case and a patent case, and he was it was a judge in Sacramento, and this judge in Sacramento, and I found this fascinating when he told me the story about how he was, residing over this case, and the judge had to keep stopping the case because he oversees all the water disputes in the country. And I was like, wait, hold on, time out. One judge presides over all the water disputes in the whole entire country? And he was like, yes. It's not that judge anymore. It's a new one. He stepped down. He retired. But it's, I found that really fascinating. And there's all kinds of issues about the water and the fighting over it. That completely blows my mind.
That paints a new picture too, because we're always taught America was built by eminent domain, where they seized the land from one ocean to the other, and they sold it to us as we wanted the land and we wanted the materials on the land, the ores, everything. We needed a place to spread out and live, grow food, and everything. But now it's like, I can't help but wonder, is it because they wanted the water from both sides?
Right. Gaddafi was making a big move with directing the water before he was killed. So that's, dude, water wars, man.
And it's funny hearing water wars because it's it's like we have Star Wars, we have all these different wars, but nobody ever pays attention to the water.
And and you see where everyone's consciousness is at. Yesterday I started crying, I'm a tough cookie, right? Like, I don't cry very often, but yesterday I was in downtown LA and I was feeling the energy, and I was looking around, and I was seeing a lot of people, a lot of homelessness, a lot of craziness happening on the street. And I was just feeling it, and like a sign for Narcan, and seeing the fentanyl, like the effects of fentanyl, and seeing the suffering, and seeing this is like what people are valuing, what they're giving up on, what they're not connected to, what the effects of so much is. And I was just feeling it, and I started crying. Like I just started crying of like where we're at collectively. And, most people are, deficient in vitamins and, just loaded with parasites, having all these heavy metals, and what that invites in, and how that affects the consciousness. And I don't know, I just cried, and my friend took me to the Los Angeles Athletic Club, and I went to a steam room. I went to the steam room. I did a cold plunge and sauna, and felt better. But yeah, it just I really believe that ingesting the right amount of water, praying over it, and reestablishing that connection. Because I believe even some of these, the churches, like the cathedrals, there's water lines beneath it that intersect. And I believe that they programmed it. There was an ancient way to program it. I believe there's healing earth water that we were once connected to that was cut off. And so we had to come up with creative ways, or they came up with creative ways to program the water a certain way. And so you see remnants of ways that they did that, such as with sound and light, like in scalar waves, and knowing the importance of how that affects our bodies and minds while we're here, and viewing water as if it's God is a big conduit.
And another thing that you might find interesting is, so I have a chiropractor who wrote the books on, how to be a chiropractor and what they study and everything. And one of the things that he tests every time he does an adjustment on me and all his patients is your body getting enough water? And he's the first and only doctor that I think has ever tested, and then one of the first things he'll do is go, okay, is your body getting enough water? Are you getting, or do you need more water? What do you need in the water?
I think that's called the phase angle test. It determines your level of hydration, and it's actually like a measurement of the cellular voltage of your cell membrane. So, which is like, our bodies are electric, and we're supposed to eat for voltage, which is why it's also important to work out, because our bones are piezoelectric. So like when you work out, that actually creates energy. But yeah, like the chi, your mana, your prana, your energy is the same measurement is determine your electrical charge. So if we're dehydrated, which most of us are because of the access of water we have, and then we have water that has what in it? Microplastics. And how hard that is to get out of our systems. Like, try to stop. I know it's hard to stop drinking water that was in plastic. So, like, bottling our own water. And look how much money we spend on like stuff that isn't conducive to our health. It's like, but because people are like, oh, I can't afford a water machine, like I can't afford a filter system, but then go and blow their money on things that are harmful to them. It's weird how we have certain blockages to make certain purchases that reward ourselves. That's truly like we sometimes a lot of time block our biggest healings.
Yeah, you really got me questioning now, because I drink out of Contigo bottles Kangen water that's also been filtered to take the fluoride out, and so it's like double filtered. And I'm like, I love drinking it, and the Contigo bottles are just so easy to drink from. But it's like I was
And
like, yeah, they're plastic, but it's like I never would have thought. Yeah, I'm kind of putting some of the stuff that I was taking out of the water back in the water.
right. And how harder it is to get that out of your system. But then that's why I'm kind of laying it out like this too, is when you put the God factor in it, when you put how programmed it is, when you look at it of, oh God, with the like when you really like research how difficult it is for our system to get the plastics out of our body, it starts to click and make sense. Like, oh my gosh, like that's so important.
So right now there's a craze about putting water into copper and drinking from the copper.
Now, okay, so because it like disinfects it, and in fact, like in a lot of ancient times, they stored their water in that because and it's because it prevented it kept it sanitary. And but the thing is, your copper levels, I don't recommend more than a cup of that a day because of your copper levels, like what that will do, because it makes a difference. Just like, there's this really really smart guy. He's super brilliant, and I was saying like how with low iron levels, like you should get a cast iron pan. And he's like, Julia, he's like, you're so smart, but like you're adorable. And I was like, what? And he goes, you cooking in an iron pan doesn't make a difference on your iron levels. I'm like, yeah, right. And like I had to show him like a chart of like an egg with it, an egg, like cooking an egg in it. Like it does make a difference, like what you ingest from cooking in an iron pan. So drinking in a copper mug, it makes a difference on your copper levels. So I don't recommend more than a cup a day out of a copper mug. Like I remember having, like, at my workouts, I was only drinking out of a copper flat, like, container, and it made my copper levels go way too high.
So really, we should all just stick to the glass, or does the
Yes.
glass have effect too? In which case, are we going back to the hose?
Stick to the glass. Store it in some good old glass.
So it's like already like 37 minutes in, and one of the topics that I mentioned in the beginning, I even put a slide in the intro of both seasons because I was so hopeful you were going to be coming on. And I have so many questions around this is Tartaria.
Ooh, sweet. Okay, let me back up. Let me back
And
up.
while you're backing up, one question I have that I think probably is on everyone's mind is how is there a civilization on our planet recently, even within the last century, and we don't know about it? It was
Right.
erased from us.
I think that's what makes it even more profound. And especially the fact that it was on maps, it was on maps and it had its own flag. And so it existed as late as the 19th century and it had its own map. So, I mean, that is astounding. So you're like, why? Why didn't we hear about it? And then you find this. You find a CIA document that literally mentions covering up Tartaria history. Like in a quote from that is, in other words, Tartar history was to be rewritten. Let us be frank, was to be falsified in order to illuminate references to great Russian aggressions and to hide the facts of the real course of Tartar-Russian relations. And then, like, you look at the Great Wall of China and it's facing the wrong direction. So you're like, okay, wait a second. Was this to keep the Chinese out? What's going on here? So you have these clues of, like, okay, it was on maps. They had these great they had these great cathedrals. There's this wall that, we're told is the Great Wall of China. And so it opens up, for me, it connects a lot of dots. Because and then you start to think of, well, it opens your mind up to a lot of possibilities as well. Like, wait, you hear about, like, fallen angels mating with women and having these giants. Like, was this built for them, for the offspring of that? Like, it opens up all these possibilities of, like, was it for this? Was it for that? Or is it just like our consciousness was higher? Were they the offspring of the Atlanteans, like of an Atlantis type civilization? And so it gets your mind working. But what's really hopeful is that I think what's most inspiring is, like, okay, so a lot of these buildings it's already wired for free energy. Like, we could take the power back. Like, it ignites something within you where you start to be like, oh, there's things we can do instead of just being submissive and a slave to these agendas. Like, look at the curriculum. Look at what we're taught about history. It's laughable now. Like, oh, wow, we were, like, Columbus discovered America, right? Like, really? I happen to be a big believer that, like, what we're taught about Egypt, a lot of the things we were taught, like, there was a civilization prior to, like, occurred in America, like, in and around the Grand Canyon area.
And it's interesting because I'm reading, like, some of your notes on there that they're saying, like, have access to water, geysers, and stuff. And my mind, like, jumped, and No, it's not because I'm hungry, but when I saw the word tartar history, my mind goes, where have I seen tartar before? Tartar sauce. Where do we put tartar sauce? On fish. Where do fish come from?
The
Water.
water. And you're a water sign, Michael.
I am a water side.
And they're the most intuitive, right? Like every water, like the astrological water signs are the most psychic. They're the most intuitive. They're the most sensitive, and just deeper. They're deeper.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, reading your notes on here and listening to you, my brain is tingling away.
Yeah, I think I do that. I ignite, like I plant certain like things that people are like, wait, what? Like, aha, like I have an effect. I should put a disclaimer on any show that I do, like, hey, listen, you may never be the same after listening to me.
Oh, that's a good thing. And to be honest, it's like when you said the Great Wall is facing the wrong way, I was like, what do you mean? It's like I had to really look at the image and be like, oh my God, I have looked at this wall several times, even from space, and never realized until you pointed it out that yes, it is backwards.
Right. And that's another thing is the what do you call it? The orphan trains. So a lot of us have amnesia, right? Like a lot of us, yeah, we don't fully know. And everybody's walking around, they're identifying being called, like, I'm Sicilian, I'm and it's like we're identifying with countries that weren't called those countries not too long ago. So it's like you're warring and fighting over things that you're not even clear on who and what you truly are. Like,
Right.
and so it goes back to like, okay, the tribes and what tribes is everyone, and then everything's so mixed. And, I love that analogy, that metaphor of indicating, showing different colored eggs, which is perfect because today is Easter, and showing different colored eggs, and you could paint, they could be all different colors, but when you crack them, they all have the same thing on the inside. Like how
Right.
important that is, and how many people have lost their lives fighting over that. But like the orphan trains was a operation that ran like between 1854 and 1929. So when you take kids, it makes you look at the wars that happen. Like World War II. Was it an opportunity to, the places that were bombed and stuff? Was it targeting specific? After you research Tartaria, you're like, wait a second, were they desecrating like some of the most profound, like healing, like acoustical healing sites of cathedrals, or what did they have access to beneath those sites? And was it to eradicate this Tartarian, this advanced civilization, the remnants of that? And then all of a sudden, when you remove the children from the culture and the knowledge, and you ship them around, like they're going to lose certain things of certain practices that you did and knew to partake in, like cleansing, for instance. Like everybody, I believe these religious holidays were dates and times of year to cleanse, knowing about parasites and knowing the effect it has on you, and doing that at certain strategic times that have to do with the sun and the moon and all of that, because parasites go off of the moon. They're very, very wise, and they even have it's like pleomorphism, like when you try to like get rid of them, they can morph and adapt, but they send out a signal to their kin when you begin to kill the parasites, that indicate to their kin a fluid that says mayday, mayday, like, multiply, multiply, because they know that the adult ones know that they're about to die. And so the baby, they'll lay more eggs, but they go off of the moon, and they're highly connected to that. So anyways, back to the orphan trains, like they were massively shipped everywhere. So it's like, where did these kids come from? Were some of them populated from Like, were they made, beneath it's certain things beneath the earth of certain experiments and populated or sprinkled among like some of the other kids, or what really happened? You see some things that happen back then where you're like, wait, what? Where you want answers. What happened? And we're all kind of walking around with amnesia. And I think each of us are going to have keys. Like, I'm going to bring something to the table. You're, like everybody's going to bring something to the table of clues if we could put this together and figure out like what happened or
Right.
where are
And
we going?
it's kind of interesting when you point out like World War II, certain cities were bombed more than others. It's even more interesting when you look into it because there were like several countries where Germany would walk in and pretty much take the country without almost firing a shot because they were like, do not destroy these buildings. We need the buildings. And
Mm.
then the US would come in and they're like, we got to drive them out, destroy the cities. And we would end up destroying cities. And people are like, my home is gone because you guys came in. We were kind of better off with them. At least I had a roof over my head. But it's like it was kind of a mixed match of, yeah, there were some cities that Germany was like, these are a threat, level it to the ground. We fought hard to preserve what we could. And I kind of wonder if, like, the Monument Men, and I'm sure you've heard of them, that went in and tried to preserve buildings and everything, if that was like a PR stunt to say, let's try and get people to stop blaming us for destroying these cities and make us look like, hey, we were trying to preserve the cities and play
I
like
think
a
the
psyop of a mix-up.
I think sound is important too. You see all those bells and they kind of ring something inside you, but the sound alchemy is huge, right? Because sound can heal and sound can harmonize the cells in your body. And knowing like what sounds in what order, and you look at the design of a lot, especially there's in Europe, the design of these places and how at the center, well, my theory is like at the center of these towns there was like these bells, and that it was designed, and you kind of look at it as like a star fort design shape, and the way the sound would be played in the center of the town, and the way it would play, it would like harmonize the frequencies in the town, creating like a harmonious frequency that radiated out. And so when you get rid of the bells and you get rid of the sound being played, and you destruct the harmonious design of these cities, that they're more susceptible probably to certain disharmony, like which kind of puts them out of whack. But it seems to be that the Nazis were absolutely obsessed with inner Earth and attaining access and knowledge of ways to get there, and just ancient mysteries beneath our feet. And so I would think a lot of the places that were desecrated had a certain access that they were like, I don't want anyone else to be able to go underneath there. I mean, it's almost like there's so many mazes beneath the surface of the earth. And so, but some of them I think had more of a like a deeper direct path.
And personally, I feel like they made it and did fine because when you look at technology of the wartime, the US is still using props on their planes. Maybe, the engines with the single prop was more strength and metal framed than the older version of World War One planes. But what did Germany bring at the end of the war that was never seen before? Jet planes. Where did they get the jet power and knowledge?
Are you asking me?
Oh, I'm just like, I'm just theorizing. Like when you say, they were trying to find ways into inner Earth, it's like when you look at the fact they came up with jet power planes before anybody else. I feel like they probably found some of the inner Earth areas.
Yeah, man, they went after they kind of went about things right, right? They used a bunch of talented psychics that really had a heavy hand in the guidance. That's smart, right? You go, yeah. So I think that I think they uncovered a lot, and yeah, I think they got to the root of a lot of it.
Right, and it just amazes me how historians just go, yeah, we were using prop planes, then Germany introduced jet power, and then we got jet planes everywhere. And I'm like, nobody stopped to think, where did this come from?
Yeah, but like I
Who
don't
was
believe that the
tasked?
Wright brothers, I don't believe the Wright brothers created flight. Like we were so advanced not too long ago, and that's even I towards the end of this, it was just indicating where we like some things that you don't hear too much about that was around. So yeah, like right here, this is electrical cars being plugged in 1909. What?
Right, in London, if I recall.
And then, did you know you could fax someone in the 1800s? It was a pantelegraph.
Now, that one I didn't know.
So when you bring that up about the planes, I'm like, in my mind, you look at the Sonora airships, the Sonora Flying Club, and it's like, to me, we were incredibly advanced before that, and not too long before that. So it's just kind of shifting of no longer believing like what they presented to us is like, oh, the Wright brothers created planes in this year in Ohio.
Right.
And then the Zeppelins as well.
Yeah. The Zeppelins I never understood. I was like, you're putting hydrogen in a very, very dangerous place with people on board. Who in their right mind ever made this a viable form of transport? It's like,
But
I mean,
yeah.
we talk about nowadays, the chance of getting on a plane, you're taking your life in your hands because all the stuff that's going on. But it's like, yeah, but at least I wasn't sitting on a bomb and being told how comforting and
Michael, you got to
pleasant
look
this
up
trip.
the jet fuel hoax. Have you fallen down that rabbit hole? Have you?
Which jet fuel hoax?
Oh, you've
There,
researched
there's
it.
there's a couple that I've come across.
And you were like, no, I don't. I believe that there's a ton of gasoline on the airplane, like all of it.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, there's something else on the planes because yeah, they don't act and react the way things should all the time. But that vertical parking garage, that would be cool.
I made that meme in I think 2019, but yeah, a vertical parking garage in the 1920s. This is the mono wheel.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of them riding around in those.
Oh, isn't it rad? I want to drive one. And then
Wow,
this was in the English Channel, and look at that.
that looks like a float. That looks like a. I almost want to say like kind of half robotic, half house. Like it looks like it's just driving itself along the coast.
I could just see my like going. Can you imagine going on a date on that thing?
Oh my god, that would be like how would you top that?
Oh, that's so awesome. And this really ignited something within me, was the fireplaces. Like, what were these fireplaces really doing? Like, was there, like, are they gathering the free energy? Like, they definitely don't make fireplaces like that anymore.
No, and it is interesting how they're more ornate, and now we're told, yeah, they should just be simple slab up, or maybe put some fancy stone to it. But yeah, we lost our ornate side and our artistic side, I think, and I can't help wonder why. At times, it's like they want us to create everything so simplistic, but yet it used to be so extravagant. And I mean, we look at the royals and all their palaces, and every room has fireplaces like that where they were extravagant. And we all know the royals were not just going and saying, I'm going to, outdo Mr. England over there by building this fireplace to look better. It's like, no, there was a hidden purpose.
A lot of these rooms, these ancient places, you see these granite rooms like in India, all over the world, where they're cut a certain way very specifically. And it turns out like a lot of them are like 111 hertz, like specific frequencies in these different places, right? Where they're knowingly shaping things to have to store a certain frequency. So the frequencies is very important. And even Royal Raymond Rife's information of like indicating that every disease lives in a frequency and dies in a frequency, and him indicating that by treating it via frequency that it can destroy it, right? And it could affect it. And then indicating that in his microscopes, and then they came in and destroyed his microscopes and busted up his lab and created the FDA and started making pharmaceuticals with petroleum-based medication. And you see the remnants of that. And in 1972, I think it was 72, that they stopped treating. They stopped like in medical schools, they stopped putting the parasites in the curriculum. And because it ceased with the because they were saying parasites are a third world issue, and so parasitology and fungal pathology was taken out of the core curriculum in most medical schools, like by 1979. And so they basically were like, I'm not going into infectious disease or tropical medicine. I don't need those courses. So now we have all these generations of doctors that aren't educated in parasites when it's at the root of most diseases, and the way that it affects your consciousness, the way your mind works. A lot of people have mental fog, and then when they showed signs of that or indicating the symptoms of that, they were given Ritalin. They were given what's the other ADHD? Like they were told it's ADD, ADHD, when in fact it's like a gut issue.
Right.
And a parasite problem.
It was like on the tip of my tongue until you asked what it was called.
Adderall. Yeah. and Ritalin. And then, it's interesting because parasites hide in heavy metals, and Wi-Fi feeds parasites. And we're walking around with our phones and all this Wi-Fi everywhere. So a lot of this is designed, you start to look around, and once you get to the root of the parasite stuff, you're like, oh, everything's kind of designed to feed that, right? Like to feed that, to strengthen them. And then you look at all these ancient ways of like the Essenes, and they're all about cleansing, and they're all about purifying your blood and your system, and all these disciplined spiritual practices that you just thought like they were just, taking it to a whole nother level or whatever. Like they were so extra with it, when it was like, no, they got down to the root of what would affect the way they feel. And they wanted to empower themselves by being clear and clarity and wanting high performance and that connection, with nothing trying to influence you. Because I believe that spiritually something is able to access you. You can call them demons or darker spirits or archonic forces or whatever. that are able, when you're so inundated with so many parasites and heavy metals, that it's able to like affect you more or enter you, however you want to call it. But so when you speak of you were looking at these buildings and they were so beautiful in their consciousness, they knew about frequency, they knew about water, and they had like disciplines that they would practice that in that connection that they honored and did. And when that's forgotten, I think that's how we got where we got.
Right. And just to clarify, we're like 2 minutes over the hour. Are you needing to go, or do you have time to keep going?
No, I have time to go. Yeah, I usually like I keep it under 2, but yeah, 2 hours. But yeah. So I'm available.
Okay, I know we were talking about something going on, and so I wanted to just make sure we were clear. So Sam M is asking in the chat room, what do you guys use for parasite removal? Wormwood?
Yeah, wormwood's really good. I recommend especially for your first time. I say just to get the Dr. Hulda Clark parasite kit. Oh yeah, and this isn't medical advice, right? Or this is just, we're not supposed to say that like on here or whatever. But I recommend.
This is
We're
our
not a doctor.
recommendation from experience.
So I recommend Dr. Hulda Clark. Jennifer, if you want to go extreme, which like Hippocrates and all them would do, Jennifer Daniels, I believe her name is, she has this turpentine recipe. Look it up. Make sure you get the correct kind, and you can bang it out in like 7 to 10 days. And you draw it in with a sugar cube, and you could put it like in a capsule. And that's an extreme way. And I'm kind of an extreme person, but but wormwood is amazing. You combine it with the garlic. The green black walnut tincture is absolutely amazing, and that gets rid of fungus. It helps if you have a cavity. It's amazing. Any kind of dental problem, that really, to swish your mouth out with it. But yeah, so I say Dr. Hulda Clark, her parasite kit was a great intro for that.
And so I'm wondering, and it's just purely, my mind, like you're saying, it starts putting pieces together, is that we see the doors to Tartaria, like you were showing, are giant. They're huge. And we all of a suddenly, it's like we were hearing in the late 1800s, I think it was, that Nevada had giants that were red haired, which I don't know why they made a big deal out about the red hair. Maybe it was rare, I guess, in the US at that time. But I'm wondering now if, because we were going in and starting to erase Tartaria and all of that, if these giants that we're starting to discover all over the world are remnants of them, like refugees from Tartaria.
Right. You have certain theories of like a vapor canopy, like everything was larger then. Like everything was bigger. You see these remnants of large mushrooms that were like petrified. You see a lot of things used to be bigger. Of like, well, did the atmosphere change? Was there an event or something that made everybody smaller? Like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But also, like, from what I understand, or sometimes is like, we used to be like, if like silica based beings and then like switched over to carbon base, or now you hear a lot about the giants, or at least I do, like all everywhere. I live right by Catalina, and there's many giants found there. And you only hear about like the cannibals, right? Like cannibal giants, which I like to I like the info that is, or the possibility that some of the giants would guard certain portals or things above, like that there was good giants. Like there was good giants that were badass and guarded certain places, and they weren't all cannibals.
Right. And it's interesting to me because I start to look at like when people say everything has been in front of us, we just have not been trained to see it. And when I watch like one anime that I like to watch is Bleach. The guardian of the gates to the spirit world are giants that are super friendly. They're just sitting there. You can walk up and chat with them, and they're like, "Hey, oh, you want to go in? I'm sorry, I can only let some, certain people in." And it's like, okay. And he's like, he'll just nonchalantly stand up and go, "But now, if you beat me, then I can let you pass." And it's like, what? And you're like, that's a really nice, and they make him like this joke, kind of happy go lucky, laid back person. And then you see other shows where you have the giants, and yeah, they're like protecting stuff. And I can't help wonder if, like, when I hear, like, my first reaction is when I hear cannibal giants, I'm like, is this just them trying to make us not want to go to where the giants are? Is it, our little nice, lovely black op government, that shadow government being like, yeah, we really don't want you here. So we're going to put the word cannibal in front of it. So now you're not going to want to be around these giants. You're not going to want to see what's over there. And another thing too was there was an anime that came out in the 80s. It was Macross or Robotech. And the alien race was like these 8 foot, 9 foot tall beings, and they would shrink themselves to walk amongst humans.
Whoa. I can't believe this is an anime. You said the first one's called Bleach?
The first one is Bleach, and that one is about like the afterlife. It's about people who can see spirits, and it's a beautiful story actually of, so when you die, your spirit is sitting there and it has a chain. And unless someone comes and helps you to the other side, your chain disappears, and then they become what's called hollows. But the beautiful thing is, so who lives in the soul society or the spirit world are soul reapers. And on the hilt of their swords is a symbol. And when they meet you, they put that on there, and it's like you turn into this blue, like, or yellow dust. And they're like, "Oh, don't worry, they're gone to the happy place. Their soul is going back to creation. It's a beautiful thing. You didn't kill them. They're okay."
Whoa. I got to see Bleach. I feel like I'm living it.
It's a long series, but I'm starting to find, and I was told by a medium when I was younger, they said, you don't watch a lot of things, but what you do watch is either you're remembering something or it has something to pertain to you. And it's like, I look back now and like all the stuff that I watched as a kid and everything, I'm like, oh my God, it's true. I never thought about it, but it's true.
Well, you have a powerful day. You were born March 15th. That's 3/6.
The Ides of March.
Yeah, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. And here's something else that's even more wild about that is, who's the one person in history that Shakespeare made reference and was like the first time Ides of March had ever been in print? Julius Caesar. who happens to be on my father's side a distant cousin. So it's
Really?
like I was born on the day my distant cousin was assassinated.
Oh, and you know what he named his daughter? The best name in the world. Come on. Come on. Here's a hint. Here's a hint. He named his daughter Julia.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like now you say that, it's like I remember seeing it, and it's like my memory is like going, yeah, we've seen that name, but I've always spent so much time with like who was his son, who, and it's like because we're taught in history that it's patriarchal, so it's like you pay more attention to the sons than the daughters,
Right. And you know
unfortunately.
what's interesting is you get a lot of your like I produce higher amounts of DMT in my blood naturally, and they said that I get it from my mother's side. It's just like what a lot of like into like gifts like that are from the maternal side. So we are taught to focus on the male side, to have the last name of the males. And I love that info. Hans Dietrich talks about it a lot, of that there was no male pharaohs. It was like females, and how the women, the depictions of the women have the hand like on the male's shoulder. And
Right, holding the ankh of
but
life.
I noticed too a lot of like when you took away the goddess worship, like the fall in consciousness and the fall in humanity as well. I don't know. I like goddess worship
I do too.
of like to me the closest you can get to God is the soul portal that resides in between a woman's hips. A soul can literally come between those hips. A soul. Where does the soul come from? But so that is to me like this advanced organic technology that is the closest you can get to God. And that's my belief. That's my belief system. So to take the women and to make them into these whores, and to take away of like, don't listen to them, and they're like, it to me it's like, what? Like they give us life, and this is what we're doing. Just like with water, like the water, like what do we do with our water? We defecate in it, we urinate in it, the chemicals we pour down the drain, and the relationship with it. It's like I just feel like it's correlated. So
And the first time we ever hear, and what's interesting is, Catholicism started out matriarchal. People don't realize this. It was matriarchal to start, and then it wasn't. They say, I think they coin it as the Council of Nicaea, is when they ripped out the feminine, made it patriarchal, and turned it into the fear-based religion that we know today. It started.
and they took out all the women too. And they made it, not only that, but they made it to where the herbs are, that's witchcraft. Like that's plants hold a lot of answers and solutions and healings, and they've convinced people not like that's worshiping the devil is like by using herbs. Like it's crazy to me. Like if somebody told me that this would happen, I'd say no, they could never be successful in that, because and 1 gram of DNA holds, a lot of information, and it's like 455 exabytes like of data. Like you can store every song that's ever been recorded since the early 1900s like in 1 gram of DNA. So I would have been like, there's no way that humanity would fall for any of these tricks. Like I have to give I have to give a hand to these powers that were able to implement the things that they were able. Like I'm impressed. They've been able to pull off what they pulled off.
Right.
And because I would have bet against them. I would have never believed like with everything that I have, that these things would have been implemented and successful because of how easy it is to connect and the information inside of our DNA. So
And
it's a wow.
to me, what's even more amazing is we study DNA in high school and college, and we're taught, yes, we're a deep double helix system. Okay. And then we go, and when you question and say, wait a minute, there's all these other strands of DNA in our system. Why are we only a two-strand system? What about all these other strands? And they go, oh, that's junk DNA. Like,
There's no such
why
thing.
we have junk in our system?
There's no such thing.
Yeah. And people are like, okay, yeah, that makes total sense. I'm like, no, no, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
I love that
No.
information. I talk about it all the time. That like I talk about, and I always thought our hearts like had this steady stream, like a river, like the blood flowed through our vein like a river. And it's like, no, the heart, like it spins it's like it makes it to where there's two strands that flows and spirals around a third ventricle, just like our DNA. And what else flows like that? Our cerebral spinal fluid. And our cerebral spinal fluid was so profound to me, because it stores light and it's constantly transmitting vibration and light. And it's the energetic fluid that it creates, that it goes to every major center of the brain and our entire central nervous system, like instantaneously and non-synaptically, like meaning without thought process. So it creates spontaneous states of being, states of consciousness that are not through like mental thought, but through a wisdom of light that is conducted by what? By water. And this flows inside of us. And the guy, he said, our soul swims in our cerebral spinal fluid. He created oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name. The bipolar therapy, not bipolar therapy, polarity therapy. The guy that created polarity therapy. He says our soul swims in the cerebral spinal fluid. And looking at that, but our cerebral spinal fluid also flows in two streams that flows around a third stream. So you're seeing this pattern in our DNA, in our cerebral spinal fluid, in our hearts. And that to me was wild. And then applying that to what? Living structured water, how you can spin it. You could spin water and you can make like a vortex and make it into structured water.
Randolph Stone is who.
Randolph Stone. I can't believe, gosh. I pack so much information in my mind and then I get upset if I can't like just pull it up like whenever. Like, what?
Oh, I feel the same way. And I used to have like this great recall of history and events and like this huge story of it. And one day I was just sitting down and I was thinking about something and I felt something different. And I was like, and I put my hand on my chest and I was like, I can feel my heart beating here. And then I put my hand over here and I was like, wait, there's another beat here that's identical to my heart. And I was like, is there two hearts here? And I was like, I seriously started thinking for a while, I think I have two hearts, one that's smaller than another. And time goes by and I forget about this and everything. And lo and behold, I turn on British TV this time, and it's a show called Doctor Who. What's the one thing about this doctor? He travels through time, has total recall of everything, has two hearts. And when his time is up, he doesn't die. he regenerates into a new form
Mm.
and goes on in a new personality and pursues to explore the galaxy. And I was like, wait a minute, so two hearts is possible.
Whoa, that's profound. I remember wondering, like, I remember saying, I would say, like, listen, if you told me we had two brains, one in our stomach, like in our gut, and one in our head, I would believe you. Also, if you told me, look, Julia, our brain is in our gut, I would believe that too. You know, because I've never actually seen it, but you know, it's like there's such a connection there with the gut brain that it makes me feel like it's like having two brains, or you
Right.
know,
Because
and
there's the
then
expression we're brought up with, you're thinking with your stomach.
but how our heart is a helicoidal band, and you know, the chambers, and how it's like rolled upon, and how it works as like it operates like an endocrine gland, and it has an intrinsic system, and the way it works is like, whoa. So maybe you're picking, like, you know, with the if it working like that, it's almost like having, you know, two of them or whatever, multiple ones, with the way it's connected to everything inside of us. I think there's stories of like reptilians. I think it's in here actually about reptilians having two hearts. What's his name? Marco Polo. He, well, yeah, he said, oh, does it talk about what he saw? Maybe I don't have it in this one. Oh, what did he see? He talked about being in, like, being over there, and the, what did he say? Relating the existence of these great serpents for what seemed like to be personal experience, and that these creatures strike fear into those that see them, for they are not only hideous to behold, but also long and big. But anyways, it reminded me of what you were talking about, because I think they talked about like killing them in a certain way, and that they had two hearts, these like reptilian type beings that would come up from the ground. But yeah, no, I totally took that far. I took that past than what you're saying. Just, I'm like, oh, while I have it up, you know, he's talking
No, but
about.
yeah, and it's interesting. Like I would mention it to like people in the medical field, and they're like, "Oh, you're just hearing an echo." I'm like, I didn't say I heard two beats. I said I felt two beats. But they would always be like, "No, you're imagining it." I'm like,
But they were like
"No."
opposite. How was the timing on it, Michael? Was it like opposite? It'd be like, you know, could it be like in arrhythmia? Like what was the rhythm of it?
It actually feels like they're almost in sync if I did it right now. And let me tilt my screen so you can see better. What I'm saying is, like right here, I can feel my heartbeat really strong. And then I put it here, and it's like I feel the heartbeat again. And if I take my hand off of that heart, I still feel it. It's like it's just still pumping away, doing something. It feels like something's pumping, and I'm like, that's too far away to me to be. I'm feeling this heartbeat up here. To me, in my mind, it's too far of a distance to be like I'm feeling the same heart, just in two places. If that makes sense.
Interesting.
And I don't know if anybody else ever thought about, putting your hand underneath where your throat is and feeling if you feel another beat. Because I know your pulse is off to the side.
I feel like people like would talk anytime I ever heard discussion about that. It'd probably be with somebody on uppers. They're like, "Yeah, when I do coke, I feel my heartbeat too strong." So,
But
do you want me to take down the slideshow, or?
well, so is there anything else in the slideshow that pertains to the topics that we were talking
Oh God,
about?
there's so much. This is like a full blown. Yeah, I think we covered like I think we covered the gist of it. But basically, I could close it out with, you know,
Well, there was one
that.
topic that we hadn't hit yet, actually,
Uh huh.
and that was Hollow Earth.
Oh wow, yeah, that's the jackpot right there. And look, we could start like every cataclysmic event. The ones that have the knowledge know when to go beneath the earth, right? And then some of them come up. Some of them come up and then kind of conquer the lands like pirates. But okay, Inner Earth. I had a wild experience. I had a really wild experience about that. I won't go into like a ton of details, but an overview. What did you want to know?
Well, I'm just curious because I hear the term Inner Earth, I hear Hollow Earth, and I've seen like the maps that people say, oh, yeah, here's this, and how it leads to other theories like the flat Earth versus a round Earth. But I've never really felt like anyone has really clearly said for any purpose of saying, yes, if Hollow Earth is here, this is what Hollow Earth is about. This is why we have a Hollow Earth, if that makes sense. It's like everyone has they talk around it, but there's never a where did this start from? Where did it originate from? And why is it, now coming around?
I think it's some of the most heavily guarded information. Like, well, no, not heavily guarded information. There's, from my experience, and like I said, I had a very wild experience. I've done a few presentations on it, and I have a book written that I don't. I maybe one day I'll release it, but based off of, I was approached to do a show for Vice about Inner Earth, and they found me. And then what happened is my family said no because they wanted to do a show, and my family said absolutely not because they kind of wanted my family to be like the ones that think it's crazy or that don't believe it, to like interview them and have them on camera. And my family said no, and then I referred them to someone that's brilliant. Andreas, he goes by Exertus, and he's phenomenal. And then they contacted me to remote view a location for the show, and it had to do with Inner Earth. And so I went to remote view it and had profound experience for that. It was like 4 or 5 days, and this the wildest thing that happened and what I was shown and everything. But what I will say is imagine a heaven. Okay. Like a heaven, a utopia, which I call them the water worshippers, and very advanced, unbelievable. Like that. Then 3 layers of hell around it, like 3-4 layers of hell, and then surface Earth. And the things down there, the distance, it's vast. And so a lot of times people will ask me about like the planets and the stars, but I like to focus on things that are beneath us. I think that, we're taught to look out there when and we're able to think large when it comes to the cosmos. Like, I feel like everybody thinks large of like the belt and this and the light years, right? The distance and the mass. Imagine that beneath you, because it's enormous. Like, there's like what you think of space, like I think of beneath us, based off of what I've encountered and experienced. But so there's a field that guards, like there's ways and mazes, and there's like some of the horrific things beneath this surface, like in the ones beneath that, like horrific things that occur there. But but beneath all of that is then there's like this thing that protects it. There's this field that really fascinated me. Like the way I don't know, imagine like a laser security system, but you can't see the layers mixed with like a field like security system. Like it's and the way to get in is like conquistadores of the heart, navigating the heart and purifying it, and like there's ways to get to that place. And I thought that was brilliant. I mean, what better way to protect heaven than 3 layers of some of the darkest, craziest MFers,
Yeah.
of like that concept or whatever.
That also is interesting because we have Stargates around the planet, and one of the things that I found interesting was a lot of people were saying, military has tried using the Stargates, and when they were able to actually activate them, the soldiers that went through, their weapons would not go through with them. And so it was like you had to be a certain vibration to go through, and it wouldn't allow anything that would go against that vibration, is what they were saying. And it sounds like kind of like what you're describing. And so I kind of wondering now, where we think Stargates are taking us to other worlds out there, are they actually in turn taking us deeper into our own world? And we think we're going out.
Right. Yeah. Like, and the thing is I'll say things, but I always say this, okay? I always say everything you do, like, there's no fooling because imagine some beings being obsessed with getting to that location, right? To certain locations that you have to do certain things in order to get to. And they try to hack into it in a certain way, blend into certain bloodline, like trying different things, it's almost like a Disney cartoon, right? Of like, I must get to, yeah, I must get there. But of that, of having to, okay, so everything you do here, everything you think about, everything you do, so all your actions, all your thoughts is recorded. Imagine it recorded on a device like a little crystal. So you're never getting over on anyone. So if somebody's going to review like 1,000 years from now, or your soul of like, hold on. It's like a fingerprint of like, do you have access to this place? Oh God, you did what? Like you're not fooling anyone. So like live accordingly. Just, or people that think they could cover their camera on their like electronic device, like if you can't do that in this place, like with this type of like, I don't know, like soul technology of like hacking, like, so to, I don't know, to when you realize like some things of like, this place really exists. Wow. I maybe should operate a little differently.
All right. And one guest I had on, we were talking about like the Nazca lines and going, how they're visible from space. So it's obvious, you would think, well, this is a message to our outer space brothers. Hey, here is an outpost or something, an identifying mark. And one of the things they theorized was because, as these places have no wind apparently or anything, because the lines are never altered, they're perfect all the time, that they're energy barriers, and that there's a civilization inside the Nazca glyphs or animals that we see, and that's really what the Nazca lines are, is the civilizations that were here before watching us are sitting in this cloaked area because our energy is not at the level to see them, so we can't enter where they are. But the day they say we do reach that level, we'll be able to enter their world and see. But you can't just walk in and be like, oh, hey, hi, guys, didn't mean to discover you here.
That's interesting. Almost like a protection thing of indicating, like, oh, you can't come up or F with this area below. Like, because it's indicating, like, this symbol means, like, haha, we told you this was this territory. You know, like it meaning
Right.
something more of like, don't you fuck with this territory.
Right.
But
Right.
I've
Like,
even wondered with like astral traveling, like if it was certain things of when you know, like, you know, if you're astral traveling a lot of like an indication of where you were from above.
that's true because we think because we're going to places that we don't recognize and we're going through wormhole like kind of technology from going from point A to point B, we're assuming we're going out in space.
From what I understand,
But
so these stargates were like cut off. Like there's some wormholes that can take you like from here to there, here, like and but that the Stargate like was the access level changed. And
right,
so you're seeing like the reaction of the consequences of what certain beings or whatever are doing because they no longer have that access, so they had to resort of getting creative and trying different things and tinkering and getting scandalous to try because they're upset over not having that access. And
right,
even
they're
like Samus
trapped.
Monagich in his book, he translated some runes that I think they were Hungarian, and it was found in the Bosnian pyramid. And on the wall, when he had it translated, it said like the conduit is closed. Um, Let me find it, but the exact quote. Um, it said the conduit is closed and they're going to have to operate as like warriors before it's open again. And so, was it because of certain stars being aligned in certain conjunctions or certain positions of the planets that closed it off? Did something like what caused that from being shut off? What caused the access level? You know what I'm saying? So,
Right. So my theory on that is, so we all have heard of the veil between here and when we die. There's a veil between, and that there's guardians of the veil that protect both sides. So you don't just walk into the underworld and be like screwed because you're like, oh man, I don't know where I am and can't get out. I feel like the gates, the Stargates, especially ones, in space or even on the land, have guardians. And I feel like it's something that's been around for a long time, but we never truly put them together. And I wonder if it's the elementals
mm,
because they're protectors of the planet and we think they're just protecting nature. Maybe they're the ones protecting the gates. And when they may have had an alliance with one faction, alliances change. All of a suddenly, you get cut off because they're like, nope, we no longer accept your race or your energy frequency as currency to go through. So you've been cut off. We're sorry. And I mean, what's the one thing we've been taught about elementals? I mean, being in the paranormal world, I know this very well is you don't F with the elementals. If they tell you to get out, you get out. You don't argue with them. You don't stand up to them. It's like they say something, you do it. And so that's why I'm thinking now, maybe they're the ones that are controlling who has the gate access.
oh my
And
god, I love that. Can you imagine going against all four elements on
five,
top of like what ether? You know of them? Yeah. Oh, four, five.
five.
Um, what and like yeah, with ether, like good luck. Good luck with
Yeah.
that. Good luck.
It's like, I mean, and we always see, like, what's the one thing, like vampires, that everybody shows about vampires. It's really hard to kill one because they disappear and reappear on an instant. Well, we've been taught that's a vampiric move. Maybe it's not. Maybe that was an elemental. And it's like, and even in the movie, which one was it? It had Vin Diesel as the guy, the Farian who could see in the dark. He was like genetically, it was like his DNA was made so that his race could see in the dark. And there was this lady who was made of air, and so she could glide anywhere. And they're like, "We'll open the door, and watch you glide down as a threat to her." And she would just glide to another part of the ship and go, "You can't threaten me with that." But it's like we've been shown all these different ways of elementals, and yeah, there's no way to defend yourself against one.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love what you said, Michael. Guard the elementals, right? But
Yeah,
that's
because
what, there's things that I've coming to a conclusion of some of the ancient tech I've come across, some of these ancient sites and sort of organic crystalline like AI type thing, or I call it the organic intelligence. You start of coming to the conclusion of like seeing how majority of like a lot of humanity operates and thinks and power hungry and things they would do, like where
yeah,
you start to appreciate or when you understand of why certain things are guarded in your because the first thing you do when you like wake up to things is like I have to run and tell the people, right? I want to
yeah,
tell everyone, like I want to preach and point my finger and I must tell everyone. And then of realizing like there's certain information that's protected and sacred, and because of like if everybody had it, the things that they would do with it. And I like to look at like learn that you take away L and learn, it's earn, you got to earn it. Like there's certain things you have to learn, you certain things you have to earn.
yeah. And I just thought about something else too. Was there was a movie and Nickelodeon did a series called Avatar. The Last Airbender was the series, and it was like 4 books about the elements. And he figures out, in the course of his life, he figures out the fifth one. But then they did a movie, and they were like, "Nope, we're not allowing this out anymore. We're cutting it off." But
Mm.
the interesting thing, it was like I was just thinking about it as I was describing the elementals, was the Avatar who was their they tell you in the story it's one person, which I feel like that's just their way of control. It's not really one person, but the story goes is he has to master earth, he has to master fire, master water, master air. Then he goes into the spirit realm, which would be the fifth element. And only in that aspect, when he's mastered all, can he walk in both worlds.
Mm.
And what are we just now saying? To get through the gate, you may have to pass through an elemental. How could you do that? Be the equal.
Mm. Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. And that takes it back to um, you know, water, of what we were saying earlier about water is the mediator between physicality and the zero point energy of the quantum field. And so I'm just like applying that.
Yeah. That's why I love doing these shows. Is
Yeah, you're amazing,
just
Michael.
for
I love how you think. And yeah, I really enjoyed this and
yeah.
I
So
appreciate you.
I do have one last question, and it's one that I have had on my mind since you first sent me your logo and everything. Is the child behind you with the eye patch and everything? what is the symbolism and meaning? Because it's like I look at it and I'm like, I find myself like I could just stare at it and get lost in it.
Okay, I'm glad you asked. It's actually a copper. It's supposed to be like a copper, like a plate, and it's like you notice that you need a key, right? Like,
Right.
and then this is my eye, and then if you look over here, it is the Vesica Pisces, which is huge for me, and for a lot of reasons. The design of this place, the Taurus field that we're in, the three, it's really profound for me. And then there's water from the earth and plants coming out from the eye. I have one because I made this, and I have one with a crystal. It's like quartz crystal obelisk, which is profound. There's a deep, significant reason based off my remote viewing session of Inner Earth of why it's in there. But this one doesn't have the quartz crystal obelisk, but it has the water, which is, I was on a show and there was people saying that, like I was like Illuminati, or like it was like a node to like something like really malevolent. And I'm like, wow, this is why, and it's such a profound reason of some deep, pure experiences that I have and what this means to me. And just the fact that how everything can be depicted as like this one eye symbolism, and like this node to like, this is like there's a demon behind Julia, and it's like, oh my god, I'm alarmed at your discernment, or it's just lack of it's just lack
Well,
of.
what's interesting is to me, it's like I see the two eyes like you're describing, but the forehead, it's like it's the dawn. It looks like the sun is rising between the two eyes, and it's like the dawn of a new day in the pineal gland area.
Yes, and and the pineal, because, and that's another thing, is a lot of my visions, like it's with my eyes open, and the visions that I've had, and our bodies emit a type of light called biophotons, which are weak particles of light, and they're not visible to the naked eye, but through special instruments you see it. But the eye itself emits light when exposed to ambient photons. And so this light emission's been linked to brain activity and visual perception. And so, and that's where a lot of my profound things have happened, is like literally through light and using my vision and my pineal. So, but it's also too kind of like a crown, and it reminds me of like a, like a Inanna, Hecate, like Athena, like a warrior goddess type vibe that I feel really like, I feel a lot of love for. So I'm so glad that you asked, because a lot of people just assume, but it's near and dear to my heart.
No, I get it. It's like that's why I was like saying, it's like I was drawn to it and like getting lost in it. It's like I didn't feel any bad or anything like that from it. It's like there was a curiosity to it. I was like, I knew there was a story, but it's like I wanted to know. There was
Wait, you thought it was a child? You thought it was like a little girl?
I thought it was a child, yeah, at first. I looked at it and then I was like, well, it could be where we all began from.
Right.
And this is what we're going back to, kind of image.
No, that means the world to me. Especially, we got to get back to the water, you guys. We got to just, what I recommend is going to, like, if you look up a local spring and start adjusting the water, and look into like a really good filtration system. And I have, I do not endorse Enagic. I'm not for that. There's another company, it's on my Facebook, that I recommend. There's some other good ones, but, and pray over your water before you drink it. It's programmable. It can hear you. It makes a difference.
Cool. So, where can people find you?
Okay, juliakamman.com, JuliaKamman. This is it. You just put a .com after that. Or my YouTube channel I recently started is the same name, Julia Kamman. And then on Instagram, okay, nobody ever gets this. Okay, my Instagram is Holly Julia's. It's Holly Julia's, but everyone thinks it's like Haley. They're like Haley Julia's. Like they don't get it, and I love it. I like puns. I'm a big dad puns person. Just call me Rapunzel. No, but yeah, Holly Julia's. So HALLEJULIAS, and then yeah, on Facebook I'm Julia Cameron. So just remember the pink light.
So I do know I found the website, so that is in the description. But your YouTube and Instagram, I was like, I didn't come across those when I was looking you up and everything.
I think I'm a guarded secret, and I think I kind of want to remain secret. Like, dude, don't follow me unless I literally like do something for you. You know, it's like I wasn't sure if I wanted to come out, man. Like, literally, my heart was divided. 50% of me was like, Julia, you need to like get out there and speak of this. The other half was like, no, girl, just keep doing what you're doing. You don't want the energy attached to it. Like, people are mean. I don't know. Like, I was divided for a long time over it, but this is,
Yeah.
I'm out now.
I was divided about creating this series too, and I finally had a moment in life where it's like I could, I realized I could keep burying it and just keep doing it on the side and never share it, or I could introduce it to the world and see what happens. And I was like, yeah, out of the tragedy that happened to me, which was my father passed away unexpectedly. He was my greatest champion, and so he had always wanted me to do this series. We'd talk about it, but I always would say, I don't know people. Nobody's going to trust me to come on. I'd always talk myself out of it. And I finally, 2 months later, said, I'm watching this series. I'm going to create 10 episodes, ended up with 11. And when I launched the series, I kid you not, I had only 3 guests. And I had to hope and pray because I launched this and said, I'm going to have this many episodes, that I could find people to fill the said episodes. And I was blessed to have Brad Olson being the
I
first
think I
guest.
agree. I think I agreed to be like your fourth, or I think I talked to you because I was like, yeah, sure. Like, we booked it in like November, and I was just like, yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I was like, season 2, I was like, I was feeling more confident, and I felt more like I was like, yes, this is good and everything. And I was trusting and reaching out to more people. And I saw you at a conference poster, and I was like, I want to know about that. And I reached out to you, and I was like, at first I was like, yeah, I know I'm not known, so probably I'll get pushed to the side, and I'm okay with that. And then I was like, you reached out, and I literally was like, and I ran into the other room, and I told my mom, she reached out.
Yay! Oh my gosh, I love that. A lot of people will tell me like, Julia, you're intimidating, man. Because I'm always like, what? Why didn't you ask me? I'm totally fine. But I was excited, and I'm so glad that you did this and that you're listening to your heart. That's so inspiring, and it just makes me want the world, like so many people, to know you and just be like, look what you did, Michael, by listening to that voice and not listening to those self doubts. It's literally like a mind virus of the things that will stop us or block us, and then we look back like, what? I was listening to that, like, why?
I know, and the other thing too is I'm learning stuff about myself, and so my mom laughed one day, and we were on the phone with a friend of ours in the community, and she goes, "So you're going to get on the speakers circuit now that you're out doing this series?" And I go, "No, because I don't think anyone's going to want to listen to me go for book an hour and then like 5-10 minutes be going." So I have information about this. This is from my own research, and I have interest in this topic, and that's all I know. Thank you for coming. Nice to see you all. I'm sure you have questions, and it's like, yeah, I don't feel like I have enough information
No,
retained.
it just, but
Go on
it pushes
through
you to present it in a certain, to organize it. That's what helps with speaking. It gets you to compile it, organize it, and then lay it out, and that helps. And sometimes when you talk to me, like all kind of like with certain stories and details, like I could become like I get very Sicilian Italian mob boss. Like, yeah, there was this guy, right? Like when I like, yeah, photons, our body emits them. And it's like, yeah, but explain exactly how. And it's like, like it shoots out of our eye. There's some things that I like to say the bullet points and things. And so by doing presentations and speaking events, it gets you to, organize it and present it. So I think you have amazing insights, and then you are attracted to some awesome subjects, and you bringing it together like like a symphony and laying it out there. I think that would be great. Because you're gonna have a lot of guests on and do it like this, but then also your own conclusions and your own insights and organizing and laying that out. If you're a dot connector and you see far past, like you come up with ideas and suggestions of possibilities of like, well, like what I like that, enjoy that, and people are going to want you to expand upon that. Of like, okay, the Nazca line, of
Right.
taking your insights and getting more detailed and filling in that presentation space. Michael, you got this. That's amazing. I'm so happy that you did this.
Well, and what helped was I had two guests that I was talking with them before the show, and one of the things that they said was, I like how you do conversation, and watching the one episode I had done, and so I was like, okay, cool. And then while we were in the interview, I go, hey, I had this, thought come to mind of an experience. Do you mind if I share it? And they were like, looked back at me, and they're like, dude, share it. Don't ever hold it back.
Mm.
And there was like, we want you as a host to share your experience. And so
Yeah. Yes.
I was
Absolutely.
grateful to have that input, because I'm like, as a podcast host, my mentality was always put the guest forward. Everyone wants to hear the guest. They don't want to hear me. And so I would keep quiet, and I'd be messaging after the show going, yeah, this or that. They're like, why didn't you say that? And I'm like, now it's more of a, yeah, it's an equal conversation.
Yeah, you like I said, you have like some pretty awesome insights, and you can make a whole series on just just a couple of those of you that with the imagery. These are the Nazca, like and taking that further. What you said about the portals, like come on, Michael, dude. I'm gonna be following up with you. Like, did you do a video? Like, because you got to have some solo ones, straight
Yeah.
up. You got to have some and expand upon your insights. And I like how you take it to anime. I mean, I don't watch anime, but like that, the Bleach, like that there's a giant guarding portal, like that's a good decode.
Yeah. And it's like, and we were talking one day on one of the episodes about, how we need to get back to nature and everything, and fairies, and how fairy, and I said, well, maybe the fairies evolved into the elementals, because they seem to, one disappear as the other becomes more known. And he's like, that's a possibility. We don't know. And then we started talking about like the movie Dune, where these people live in the desert riding worms all over the place, and we're like, how do these people live in the desert? And I'm like, yeah, there's all these decodes all around for us that we just never pay attention to.
Yeah. And I think that the more we flirt with that, like I always say, like my ideal day would be to train like a warrior and then just sit around in a steam room with like Socrates and Plato and theosophize, and then to eat like a warrior after battle and do other things, dance and stuff. But I like entertaining things and talking about it. And it's nobody knows. And I have to say that too, because there's nobody knows. Okay. So the more we can explore and explain possibilities and then kind of just stay fast in like morals and ethics and like certain codes of conduct of like right and wrong, and you know, treat others the way you want to be treated, I think we'll be all right.
Right. So, wow, we've actually gone over 2 hours. This was my first show to ever do that.
Woohoo! I'm glad I'm your first, Michael. Well, I got to spend a holiday with you. Thank you so much,
I
and
know.
thank you. Keep sharing your gifts and organize them. I'm going to ride your butt, riding through the unknown. I'm going to be messaging you like, you better get on. You better get on your online presentation videos. Get your insights and expand upon them. Where are you at on this?
I would totally need that too, because I easily distracted by a new theory or something.
Right.
popping
I
up.
know. And when it comes in and when something fascinates you, hop on it. Just make it slides. Just make slides. And don't get overwhelmed by like, wait, do I need 30 of them? Whatever. Like get 5 down, then fill in the rest. Like just complete 3 to 5 and then fill in later.
All right. I'm definitely looking to doing that.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much again and happy Easter.
Thank you. Happy
You're
Easter
awesome.
to you. So, one last thing is, what is one golden nugget you would love to leave with everyone watching this episode from your life experience?
Oh my gosh, from my life experience. Oh God, a golden nugget. I was like, dude, the things. I think that information about everything you do here is recorded. You know, like you're not getting over on anyone. But what's the most helpful? I just think purifying your system. Like, oh my gosh, I'm totally on the spot, and I'm missing it. Like, I'm like, okay, I just want to cram a bunch of things in.
And I'm sitting here and I'm loving the fact I said a golden nugget. And you're like, oh, it's got to be this. It's got to be that. I'm like, dude, I just said a golden nugget. I never said had to be profound or anything.
A golden nugget. God, there's so many things that I live by, though. Oh my gosh. I don't know.
Let me put it to you this way then. A golden nugget meaning something that you found really left an impact on you that you would want to share with someone that may be starting on a path similar to you. Does that help or does that make it worse?
I think that okay. You get the love you think you deserve. Okay? You deserve what you tolerate. So sometimes with love, like it's easy to settle or like to do things, and that you get the love you think you deserve. So like realize you deserve more, but a lot of people look for the right person, like try to become the right person first. And like 2 broken people don't make a whole person. And I feel like a lot of us of coming back to the love, like what if that's the name of the game here? What if we're here to love? What if that's the game and everything's designed here to keep you out of your heart, to not find love, to not love yourself? And that's supposed to be the highest frequency, right? Is love. Well, I always say like a bright above the love frequency is authenticity. So of like, okay, well, how are you loving ourselves? I feel like so many of us we're criticizing ourselves, and we're battling negative thoughts every day. Like, that's why when people are critical of me, I'm like, dude, I don't need any fucking help. Nobody needs help criticizing themselves. Like, we each got that covered. Okay. There's something about this place, whether it's coming from another force or spirits or darker, whatever, or just ourselves that are thinking negatively and critical. So, of adjusting that and appreciating yourself and loving yourself and knowing that you have a purpose and that a discipline is that's what it takes. Like, we're taught that loving yourself, you give it whatever you want. If you love something, you'll give it everything and everything it wants. And that, like, discipline's bad. Like, if you can't have something, and that loving yourself is disciplining yourself. So, discipline yourself with like eating right and working out and doing the right things and doing spiritual practices of like certain meditation. But yeah, no, I'm taking it way too far. But that heaven, really, there is a place that exists. Your soul is immortal. You could get there by the way that you live. But yeah, loving is important as well. Okay, yeah, I took that way too far. I took that way too serious, and I overchanged my answer.
I think it was perfect. I think it was perfectly said, and I feel like a lot of people are going to resonate, and that's going to resonate with them hearing that. And some people needed to hear that. Like Sam M is saying, awesome advice.
Thanks, Sam.
So I want to thank everyone in the chat room, and especially thank Julia for coming on. I know it was a matter of trusting, and so I thank you for trusting me enough to come on, and had a lot of fun. And as I say good night to everyone, I just want to reiterate kind of what Julia was saying, and saying make every day a beautiful day, fill it with love and joy, and keep lifting yourself up. It's too easy to fall into the mind trap of, did I do enough? Could I have done better? And if anything, I would say remember the one line I love most from the movie Dune: fear is the mind killer.
Woo!
So let go of the fear, let yourself soar, and find the love. As Julia pointed out, we find the love we feel we deserve and resonate to. So don't settle. Find and take the time to find what you're looking for. So good night, everyone.